Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amina, and today I'm going to be doing a part 2 of my Q&A that I did a couple of weeks ago, and I asked you guys on Instagram for some questions. I got loads of questions and I just felt bad not being able to answer all of them. So here I am back with a part 2. So let's get started. I'm going to try to answer a few more questions that I found really interesting and I think would be interesting for you guys to know a bit more about me. So first question says, what's your opinion on getting a master's degree while working full time? I've had this question a lot actually from friends as well who want to kind of go on a slightly different path or retrain a little bit from their current position or their current role, and so they're doing a master's. And I have a friend right now who's actually almost finishing her master's even though she's working full time. I would say it depends on why you're getting that master's. I think if you're already working, you have a career, you have a job, the only reason really why you'd get a master's is either to, I guess, climb the ladder of that particular job if that's a requirement, or to maybe go into a different field. There's more of a purpose, I guess, than when you're an undergrad and you're doing a master's just because it's kind of like the next thing to do. So I would say do it. It's not easy. You need to do a lot of evening work, a lot of like weekend work, a lot of reading, especially if you're saying you're working full time. That's going to be really challenging. But if it's full time, I don't know, how would you work full time and do a master's? I'm guessing the master's is part time then, so it'd be a 2-year master's possibly. I think it's absolutely fine. I just think that make sure that the reasons why you're doing it is because it's actually going to be beneficial for you in whatever way, and not just because you think having a master's on your CV is going to be helpful, because actually it probably won't be as helpful as just carrying on in that particular career or maybe reapplying for a different job. Be aware of your circumstances, but it's not going to be easy. It'll be a tough 2 years if you do go down that route. Next question says, do you have days when you're not productive at all? Absolutely. I mean, anyone who says they're productive every single day is lying to you. That's just not possible. You just cannot be productive every single day, because, you know, at the end of the day, productivity is based on so many different environmental factors and kind of factors that are sort of outside of your control as well. So even if you say, right, today I'm gonna do this, that, and this, something might pop up, something might come up, and that's just life. Very few people have complete control over everything that happens to them in their life. So I would say absolutely not, especially now that I'm a mum. I think I have more unproductive days than I have productive days. But I think when I put my mind to it and I'm like, no, today's going to be a productive day, it does end up being productive, because I feel like I've just got my planning on point and I just make sure that everything is ready for me and ready to go. So in that sense, yes, I can be productive when I want to be, but absolutely not every day is not productive, and I wouldn't even want it to be. I think it's nice to have days when you're just like doing nothing and lying around, just enjoying life, I guess. Dr. Yonis, it's funny because some people say to like only refer to me as Dr. Amina or Dr. I'm like, you don't have to say that, like it's not necessary. But anyway, this person said, Dr. Yonis, how do you manage your time? That's a really good question as well. I get this asked a lot, like what's my best time management tips? And I actually want to develop a course on this, so keep your eyes peeled for in the next couple of weeks and months for a course on sort of like time management and organization. But how I manage my time predominantly is 2 ways. It's firstly pre-planning, so like very heavy preparation for that particular schedule, for that particular day that I want to get things done. So let's say on Monday I want to film some videos, I want to reply to emails, whatever it is that my tasks are for that particular day. I'll make sure that the night before everything is ready for me. So, you know, batteries are charged, scripts are written, outfits are planned, like everything's done and ready for me to just get going. That's probably the best way that I manage my time, because it just means that I'm not allowing for issues to occur that can break up that flow. And I think the word flow is something that we don't mention enough in productivity and in time management. And it's, you know, the act of having a constant pace. So you're not being too rapid, you're not going too quickly, and you're also not stopping too often, and you're just kind of water's flowing. It's just continuous at a continuous pace. And I just try to make sure that in whatever I do to manage my time best, I have flow. So to have flow, you need as minimal disruptions as possible. And so for me, that's planning 100%, planning in advance. And the second thing that I do to help manage my time is just to make sure that I use the correct tools that are going to help me. So that could be, for example, using Google Calendar to plan, you know, times for things, using a notebook. I've got my iPad where I kind of have my notes and I have everything there. So it's a matter of preparing and making sure that you can have flow, and then also using the right tools that suit you in whatever way it is that you find best to plan and schedule your goals and to-do lists I guess. The next question is, do you plan on teaching your son your native language? If so, how? And this is quite a, I guess, controversial question, because I know that people always advise, you know, teaching your children that your parents' language, your ethnic language, whatever. So my husband, it doesn't come from the same country as me, so we don't speak the same language. And on top of that, the language that my parents speak is almost extinct. So it's on the brink of extinction, and it's only read and spoken, not written. For him to learn it, I can't even like teach him from a book. There's about 200,000 people in the whole world that speak it, if that. Yeah, it's a bit of a sad state. There's also not much need for it. Like, if I'm gonna be completely honest, like, there's really no one that he would speak to it to. My parents, he won't speak to my parents in it. He won't speak to me in it. There's literally one person on the planet who doesn't speak English, and that's my grandma. So probably not explicit. Like, I probably won't teach him, I guess, explicitly, but he might pick up, obviously he'll pick up some words here and there when he hears my parents speak and when he hears my family speak and things like that. But I do want him to learn Arabic, and I do want him to learn other languages, maybe European languages as well. 'Cause I do believe in usefulness as well, and yeah, fair enough, like, you know, preserve your culture, etc. And I love my culture, I love my, you know, I love all of that, don't get me wrong. But I also am a realist, and I think it's important to move on. And if a language is no longer even spoken in the town that it originates from, like when I go back home, I can't understand anyone because no one speaks the language that my parents speak anymore. So it's like, if I can't even speak it where we come from, where am I going to speak it? Like, who's he going to speak it to? And I think that's why I'm saying it's controversial, because although I love it, and although I think it's such a great, beautiful language, and it's pretty much like 50% Arabic, it's quite Arabic heavy. Yeah, even though I love it and I would love for him to know it, and I think it's important for children to know their mother tongue and their parents' language, I think also it's important to be honest and to say, right, its time has passed, and it's not going to be a language that's going to be used for much longer. So I'd rather teach him something that is going to be useful. Long-winded answer, and I think maybe a bit controversial, but I'm going to be completely honest, like, that's just my personal opinion. Someone said, can you please tell me about student loan? When do you start to pay? If you don't have a job, do you have to pay it? So student loan, the process has changed quite a bit over the past couple of years. When I got my student loan, it was £3,000. I'm so sorry, those are at 10 grand at the moment, but it was £3,000, and I also got maintenance loan as well. So I think altogether my loan was like 25,000 by the end of the 3 years, and I paid it off, all of it in full, a couple years ago. The way that it works is, once you get a job, at my time it was, if you had a job that was paying you over £21,000, then you start to pay it off, and there's a certain percentage. So it ended up being like £50 a month or like £100 a month. It really depends. It's like a really, really small amount, like £50 a month. You don't even feel it, and then you keep on paying that until, was it 30 years? So you pay it for 30 years, and then whatever's left after that gets wiped off, and there's obviously interest put on top of that as well. But I think now, don't quote me on this because I have no interest in student loan anymore, so I haven't looked at it, but I think now it's £25,000. But yeah, there is a limit. So like, if you're not working, they're obviously not going to ask you to pay it back. Like, if you never work, then you never have to pay it back. But the point is that you go to uni, so I'm assuming you'll get a job afterwards. But if you don't get a job that pays a certain amount of money, then you'll never have to pay it back, basically. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially how it works. Someone said, I want to do my master's, then QTS, so that's a teaching qualification, but I'm scared about age and when to start working or saving, and how old are you when you started working, etc. Now, this is a big topic, and I'm assuming, I don't know if you're male or female, but I'm assuming you're a woman. And I think a lot of women feel like this because, you know, you have these kind of sort of societal expectations that I'll graduate at the age of 21, and then I'll get married at 22, and then I'll have kids at 23, and by 25 I'll have a house, and you know, and that's just not life. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I think the one advice that I always say is that time is always going to pass. So whether you do that master's and that QTS, whether you go and work, whether you have a baby, whatever it is that you do, that 4 years, that 5 years would just pass you, and you'll always end up being that much older. But when you're at that age, do you think your future you would be proud of where you are? And one thing that I find is actually a lot of people reject doing extra studies, like they might not do a master's or a PhD, or they might not do medicine for 6 years because they think it's too long, and they do a shorter degree. But then in the end, by the time you've got to a position or got a job that's, you know, you're happy with, or you're in a position that you're happy with, you're at that age already. And this makes me think, because when I was thinking about applying for medicine, I was age 16, 17, and I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna be 23 when I graduate, so old. And I just saw that age as such an old age. But really, I ended up doing a PhD, and at 23, I was still like halfway through my PhD. So let's say I did medicine, I would have been done with it a lot younger than if I just did a PhD. So, you know, I think don't look at age, always think about your aspirations. And 1 year is not a big deal. If you're 30, when you save a certain amount and you get married and whatever, so what? If you're 35, so what? Age is really not a big deal after a certain point. I think as adults, we come to realize that it's really not a big deal at all. And I wouldn't take that into consideration too much when deciding whether to do a master's in a QTS, especially because a master's in a QTS, what's that, a year, 2 years? It's not even like it's a 5-6 year degree. So I would 100% go for it, because you will be so much, you thank yourself, you'll be so much happier, and you'll appreciate, your future self will appreciate you, your present self, for making that decision. So 100% go for it. How do you unwind at the end of an academic year? This is another good question. I haven't obviously been a student for a while now, so I don't necessarily use the academic year as a timeline, but I guess I still think of it like that, because I'm still in the academic world and I'm still supporting students and I'm still, you know, mentoring and all that kind of thing. So it does still play in my mind when I think about sort of resetting and starting again. Usually I'd go on holiday. In normal years, every summer I'll go away. Like I would go to Ethiopia for like 5-6 weeks. Canada, I went for like 8 weeks once. I would just travel during that time, and that's what I tend to do to, I guess, reset or unwind at the end of an academic year. That's one thing. And the other thing I do is actually just to reset my space. So I'll get rid of all the files, folders, papers that I know I don't need anymore. I'll get new folders, new files, and those things kind of help me unwind and also reset. So I'll just get brand new stationery, and I'll just make sure that my space and I'm ready for that new academic year. So there's two aspects. One is like relaxing social aspect, and the other is actually just getting like physically ready for the new year. The next question says, what do you do when you experience a productivity slump? It happens all the time. Again, if someone said they don't experience it, they're lying. When I experience a slump in productivity, I try to identify what it is, and for the most part, you know what it is. It's either you've chosen the wrong time to be productive, and sometimes this happens to me. I go to work all day, come back from work, and I might come back a bit earlier, like maybe an hour early, and on the journey back, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get this done, I'm gonna do that, and I get home, I change, and I'm just like knocked out on the bed. I've just chosen the wrong time, and so next time it's better not to choose that time to be productive, and rather to do something else in that time that you know you can actually achieve. So just be aware. I firstly just try to be aware of why I feel that way, why I'm feeling slumpy, and then secondly is to kind of give myself something else to do. So let's say in that scenario, I come back home and I'm just like not feeling doing the thing that I planned on doing, then I'll just say to myself, all right, well, you know what your to-do list is. I always have like a mental to-do list. So you know what your to-do list is. What can you do from that list that means that you're getting something done? So it's not necessarily the most productive thing, but you're getting something done. And then I'll usually choose like replying to emails, or like, you know, a kind of low friction task, like something that doesn't require too much effort, but it just means that I am getting something done. So I'll do that, or maybe I'll tidy up, or maybe I'll like laundry, and something that's like a bit lighter than heavy thinking work. Definitely just try to get something done, and identifying why it is that you feel that way. Someone said 1-year-old daily routine struggles. Yes, my son is one now. He's 1 and a little bit. I'm not that person that counts the months like that. Like, you know, some mums are like, my child is 34 months. No, he's 1 and a few months. Like, if you really want to know, he's 1 and I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, I'm not sure, but he's 1. We have got a really good routine with him now. Like, it's actually sometimes a bit shocking because he reminds us of the routine, and we sometimes we're just a bit gobsmacked at the fact that he knows what to do next. Like, he just goes for it. The most recent thing that we've seen him do is in the evening when it's time to go to sleep, so around 8 o'clock, we'll say, okay, it's bedtime now, gonna get ready for bed. We'll vocally say that, so we'll actually say that it's bedtime. We'll just get up from wherever we are, we'll go to his room, and he'll try to climb onto the cot. We were just like, oh my gosh, like, he understands that this is bedtime now. We're now getting changed, we're now getting into the bag, we're now doing this thing. And it just goes to show, I think with that age, routine is everything. Their whole life is based on routine. I think it's very easy to say, oh, they've got no routine, like he just does whatever, he doesn't. But if you're not implementing that routine, and if you're not doing the same thing every day, and in the beginning it's tough, in the beginning you have to kind of fight it a little bit, because obviously, you know, they want to do their own thing, but once they've got a routine, and they actually prefer routine because they know what's coming up. There are days obviously when things don't go to plan, and that's just with all of us, even with us as adults, it's like that. But I think with that age in particular, if you were to have a very good routine and you kind of stick to it, regardless of what it is, it just makes it easier for them them, it means that you're doing less work because they know and expect what's coming up next. And so it's not a constant fight every day, like, let's go and do this thing. They expect to do this thing, so they'll be there for you. So yeah, thankfully it's going well so far in that department. Another good question, why do you think there is such prejudices against those with BA degrees, so Bachelors of Arts degrees, in contrast to Bachelors of Science degrees? I think because people think that it's harder, so it's worth more, even like in terms of career, you can get a better job from it. Like a Bachelors of Art degree, people would assume is, you know, an easier degree. They're a bit more, what do they call them? Mickey Mouse degrees. So, and I disagree. I think obviously every degree has its own complexity and its own challenges. But I think in general, people think that a bachelor's, like a science degree, is a bit more, you know, you have to be a bit more intelligent to get into one. You have to be a bit smarter, which is obviously not true. So that's why. But actually, if you look at them, some Bachelor of Science, some BScs are not as difficult as BAs. So it's definitely not a fixed thing. But I would highly, I mean, I wouldn't listen to that. If you want to do a BA and that's going to help you with your career and your progression, then go for it. Don't even think about what people think about or how it's thought about. Do you know anyone who got COVID and what it was like for them? This is an interesting random question. Yeah, I know two, I think. Yeah, I know two. One didn't even know that they got it until they found out later they had antibodies against it, which means they had it and they had no, like, their body just fought it without any reaction. The other had a bit of a cold and like a bad kind of cough, and then they were sick for, like, they were ill for a few days and then they got over it. So nothing too serious, but thankfully no one in my circle has had it too bad. Okay, let's do this as the last one. Favorite book genre? I would say my favorite genre at the moment definitely is non-fiction. The past, actually not at the moment, the past like 2-3 years, it's been non-fiction, like kind of self-help, self-guide, those kind of books. I think before I used to love fiction. I used to read fiction like it was everything. And then I kind of fell out of love of fiction because, I don't know, I just felt like everything I do has to be useful. So if I read non-fiction, like the self-helpy type of books, self-guide books, productivity books, business-related books, financial-related books, then at least I'm gaining something. I'm gaining some knowledge and some kind of, I guess, advice and skill. So that's probably why, as I've gotten older, I've gone down that route. But yeah, I think definitely those self-help topics and books are my favorite at the moment. All right, I think that's enough now. I've answered pretty much most of the questions. There's a couple more that I haven't answered. I might just reply back to them on Instagram individually on my story. But if you did enjoy this Q&A part 2, then let me know in the comments down below. And if, like I said before, if you have any questions as well, leave them down below. And maybe in a few weeks time, in a few months, I will do a part 2. Well, not part 2, I'll do an updated one. So maybe I can answer some more questions. Or if you want like a topic related one, like a business related one or marriage related one, then I'm happy to do that as well. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more from me, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.